thank you for joining us today for Music Marvels with Achickwitbeatz and Breezy Gipson. We're glad that you're here, and we're excited to just jump in and do what we do, because this is one of my favorite times of the week. How about you?
Yeah, man. Yeah, and I noticed a little bit of a change in the temperature. So that'll wake you up. That'll wake you wide awake. So and make you more capable of dealing with your projects and your plans and putting stuff into activity.
Yeah, absolutely. So, change of the seasons always brings about, new opportunities. So, we're here for you. We got the good information that you need to kind of plug ahead on your journey. And we're just going to go ahead and hop into it.
Let's do it.
All right, let's go. right, you're listening to Music Marvels with Achickwitbeatz and Breezy Gipson. Our hot topic for this week is why your music needs metadata. So this is something that's really important that a lot of people don't really take the time to make sure it's completed, and it can have a lot of repercussions. So, before we jump in, completely, just want to make sure that you have an understanding. So, of course, data is information already, but the metadata is kind of like on the smaller levels. So if you've ever had, and I hope that I'm not dating myself too much with this here, but if you've ever gotten a CD from somebody, maybe at a live show, or, maybe your homeboy just went to the studio and laid something down and wanted you to hear it, and you get this CD, you pop it in, and it just says track 1, or, something really generic. If you actually complete the metadata, that's what makes everything actually show up. So you can see what the track title is, who the artist is, and all that good information. So, it's super important to make sure that that's there. One, aesthetically, it's way more pleasing to see that instead of track 001.5 final cut. So, aesthetically, it would look a lot better to have it, but it goes a little bit deeper than that. So, the first thing is accurate music metadata. Make sure that the creators are appropriately credited. So, if you've got this song, you got to make sure that all of your information is in there, and your collaborators as well. So, if you've got a featured artist, it would really suck for them to not be able to have their name on it because they put the work in for it. So that's one major thing. Another is that missing or inaccurate music metadata leads to unpaid royalties when the song is played, licensed, or purchased. So, if you don't have this in there, then when it comes time to make sure that you're getting the royalties for the track, you're not going to get it, because if your name doesn't match up with what they have or what you've actually registered, then they don't know who to pay the money to. And so what happens is that money kind of sits in a little pool that they have for an extended period of time. And then if it's not claimed, it goes in to pay their fees and other things that they have. So you want to make sure that you get the money that you're owed. You want to make sure that your collaborators are getting the money that they're owed. So, if you're missing anything in those fields, then, it's a huge problem, and not everybody's going to get what they deserve.
See, now these are some strong tips for artists out there everywhere. And so you need to zone in to what she's teaching now, to what she's teaching and preaching, because this has to do with your bank account. Okay, so let me back out the way so you continue on.
Yeah, right. And so, music streaming platforms, they utilize metadata to make your music discoverable to potential fans. So if you don't have the genre filled out, then they don't know where to put you. So if there's nothing there, you can't possibly get playlisted for, anybody that's like, hey, play me early 2000s hip hop, play me 2020s hip hop. If your information isn't there and they don't know how to categorize that track, you're going to be missing out. So, there's 3 main things right there. Actually 4 if you want to count the aesthetic thing, which I definitely do. So, you got to make sure that it's actually there. So whoever is entering the information for your digital distribution, don't leave anything blank. So if that's you, make sure that you've got everything there. If you've hired someone else to do it, make sure that they know that everything needs to be completed. Also, if it's something that you're doing, like maybe you're handing out CDs that you got pressed out or whatever the case may be, you can add it directly to your songs using your computer's music software or other software like Digital Audio Workspace, Kid 3, Audacity. So there's ways to do it depending on how you distribute it, but just don't leave it blank. It's incredibly important. Like I say, make sure that your collaborators get the credit that they deserve. Make sure that you're maximizing everything that you can be getting. So yeah, you don't want to miss out on those playlists and things like that. Make sure that you get included in the algorithms that you want to be in. So yeah, just make sure that your music has metadata.
Oh man, now hey, again, for the artist, you better zone in to what she just said. and what she is saying, because it's one thing to read or hear that somebody's got the knowledge to help you, but then when you actually know for sure, just like with the sample that she gave you in educating you, okay, that was free education, okay, that's going to help music flow and help people get recognized and paid. And so this woman right here, she's at the zenith, she's at the max, she's at the mountaintop. So again, if you need advice or consulting in your quest with music, look her up, shoot the DMs, whatever, because you need to be aligned with someone of her stature that has the knowledge that can, in the end of the day, don't go run acting like you know it all when you know you may need consulting. Don't do that. If you need consulting, you need to go ahead and reach out to this young lady and get it done, so you'll be in the driver's seat and not be on the outside looking in. Ain't that right?
Yes, and thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. Something I'm really passionate about, because this information doesn't have to be so heavily guarded as it is. So I'm happy anytime that I'm able to shed some light on it.
Oh yeah. And so again, what better person who has a proven track record, and that track record is actually being added on to not just on Saturdays, not just on the weekends, whatever, with a radio show, but see, this is going on Monday through Sunday, okay, with various artists from around the world, okay. So don't hesitate to reach out and become a student, become a learner, become educated, because she can help you in many, many different ways concerning the music industry, on many different dimensions as well as many different levels.
Thank you. Yes, please do. All right, stick around. We'll be back with music industry news right after this.
Okay.
right, and we are back. First off, music industry news, Warner Music has launched a new hip-hop label called Asiatic Records to create superstars in the genre, and that's in quotes. So the label intends to support all kinds of promising emerging talent across the continent, regardless of gender. Asiatic says that it will lean heavily into supporting female artists in the region and to correct the underrepresentation in recorded music of female talent from Asia working in the genre. So I think that that's an awesome thing. I love to see more women represented, especially Asian women in the hip hop area, because hip hop is really, really universal. I know a lot of times, the first thing that comes to mind might be East Coast, West Coast, and then some of the others might trickle in, South, Midwest. But hip hop expands way beyond the US, and there's a lot of people in a lot of different countries that represent the raw essence that it was built upon. So I'm really, really excited to see what comes forth from Asiatic Records.
Yeah, that's going to be really good, I think. People expressing themselves, expressing them views through rhythms, music, sounds, beats, it's just like you say, it's a universal thing.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. A beautiful thing. One of my favorite genres for sure. All right. An Apple website accidentally hinted towards Apple Music apps coming soon to gaming consoles. So recently, what went down was somebody noticed the Apple Music icon has been showing up in PlayStation's 5 music menu. So there wasn't actually an app there, but they noticed that it wasn't actually linked, but they noticed the icon for the app. So shortly after, because the person who saw it worked for like one of the major tech companies that reports on different things. And so they kind of blasted it out, and other people are responding on Twitter like, yeah, I've seen it too. And so they decided to update that promotional page to kind of remove that portion away from it. So it looks like they accidentally spilt the beans, because they're offering new things for people who buy the new AirPods or new Beats or something like that. So it was supposed to be a benefit, so they didn't mean to share everything all at once. So it would make sense for them to go ahead and do it, because they currently offer Apple TV for like the PlayStation 4, 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series, and so forth. So an Apple Music app would be the next best step. So, if you're going to have a product, why not make it easy for your customers to enjoy it?
Yeah. I wish I had some access to the statistics on the age brackets that those are most highly sought after. That'd really be interesting to compare, the 12 through 16s against the 17 through 21s and so on and so forth. That makes for interesting conversation right there.
Yeah, it really does. So if you're listening and you've got that info, feel free to reach out to us and let us know, because we'd love to discuss it.
Absolutely.
All right. And Spotify has added virtual merch tables for music artists in partnership with Spotify. So now there was always an option to be able to get merch, but this is kind of new, because Spotify users will be able to see the featured product listings from Shopify right there on the streaming platform. So, it's currently in beta mode, so we gotta wait for the full rollout. But right now, the Shopify merchandise on Spotify is visible to listeners in the US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the UK. Now, Shopify and Spotify, that's a tongue twister right there. But
it is.
Yeah, good stuff coming.
Absolutely.
All right. And, for people near the Des Moines, Iowa area, East Village is getting a new bar for vinyl listening. So it's going to be called Do Not Disturb. And it's got a new intimate cocktail bar / chill hangout space where you can listen to vinyl. It's coming this holiday season. And they say that it was inspired by Japanese listening bars. So it's going to be a 1,200 square foot bar with simple and classic cocktails, and also it'll host food pop-ups with local chefs. So, that sounds pretty incredible. I'm not anywhere near Des Moines, but, it almost seems like it might be worth it for the trip, because it sounds like a really, really classy idea and setting.
Yeah, not only that, when you speak of settings, that's far away and apart from the metropolis types of setups, so it's kind of more laid back out there, and well, that's a good thing. So let's see how that works out.
Yes. And, it also says a lot for what we've been seeing and speaking about so far with vinyl. So with the bar being focused on that, it kind of lets you know it's not just a fad. I know a lot of people kind of thought so around the time vinyl started gaining steam, just saying like, okay, well, maybe, people are just kind of into it right now for the novelty, but it's been going strong for a while now. So, it's definitely not one of those trends, but, it is a totally different way to connect to the music. And something that you kind of miss from MP3s. Technology is awesome. I'm not knocking it at all. But yeah, there's something about being able to actually hear the warmth from the vinyl and, hold the albums in your hand that just does something special to you, wouldn't you say?
I'd agree totally. Agree totally on that topic.
Yes. All right. And the free pop-up museum dedicated to skateboarding, hip-hop, and punk rock is open in Montreal. So it's to mark the 25th anniversary of, it's called Underworld, which is an underground music and skateboard store. So it's reopening for a limited time from October 15th to November 6th. They'll be showcasing decks, music, photography, and more that gives a glimpse into the 1990s subcultures in Montreal. So, if you're into that, definitely be worth checking out, especially since it's only going to be available temporarily. But, it's always kind of nice to look at specific segments and times and, what was popular then, or if it's something that you experienced, to be able to re-experience it again or just learn. So, another little good tidbit for music lovers out there.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to be in this spot right now because, we're kind of in the epicenter, well, not kind of, we are in the epicenter of educating folks across many different platforms. Okay. And so, the more you listen, as we've said before, you might even want to grab your own notebook or whatever, pad or whatever, because these topics that come out of our show, it can touch people in many different ways, directions, can educate folks. And so, there may be that great opportunity that pops up right in front of you that just derives right out of the info coming from this show. So, hey, keep it up, keep listening, tell your friends and whatever, tap on in, because, you might miss what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. So, make sure you keep it locked. We're going to take a pause for the cause, and then we'll be back with more music industry news right after this. Okay, we're back with more music industry news. All right, this is a story that kind of comes with a little bit of a warning there, but a Chicago man was sentenced to over 6 years for fake concert bookings. And yeah. So Romel Murphy owned and operated Real Talent Media Group, which was also known as Real Talent Marketing Group, or RTMG. And so using this company, he would book artists for performances at concert venues all across the country and in Iowa. He would assure his clients that he could book performers. He would draft false contracts and would receive the security deposits from people. So then once the shows would fall through, he'd offer to refund the deposits and create and send a false wire transfer form that would appear as if he had actually sent the wire transfer, but he hadn't even initiated it. So it did catch up to him, unfortunately, for most of those people that were out of that money by trusting him. But he was ordered to pay $414,433 to 15 of 21 of his victims. So, you know, it's a cautionary tale. One, don't try to book or claim that you can book talent that you can't. And two, you can't take everybody's word for it. So, you know, apparently at some point in time, he was kind of close with celebrities, and he was able to capitalize on that moment when he did work with celebrities and kind of pretend as if he still had that same kind of pull. So, you know, it's really, really important that you just watch out, because there's a lot of people that take advantage of different situations, and you don't want to be one of them. So, you know, make sure that you know who you're actually dealing with as best as you can. Yeah, that's like I said, it's a cautionary tale.
Well, you know, hold up. Here we go. Okay, now, if you're blessed with being able to create different entities or ideas and bring them to fruition and whatever, why don't you just stay on the positive with it? Why use that energy in a negative manner? And then here's another example. You used the energy in a negative manner, and then it came back to bite him in the butt. Okay. I mean, that's really kind of a skanky kind of approach. You know, so at the end of the day, that person's name is just going to be thrown in there with the names of others who have just messed their own lives up, as well as the lives of others. So let's stay on the positive. Keep it positive. Keep it moving. Keep it positive. If you got that kind of knowledge to create on a positive tip. Let that negativity go, because you'll end up either behind bars, or that's the worst right there. So just don't do it.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, use that energy for good. Because yeah, in his case, he's behind bars and still has to pay back almost $500,000. So it's not going to be a time served and one and done type thing. It's going to stick around for a while. And so, yeah.
The best thing that we all have is our name. Okay, so we got to keep our name pristine. We got to keep our name on the positive tip as people who are not out to take advantage of others, because once you mess your name up and that's all you've got, your life is screwed. Your life is messed up for the rest of your life.
Yes, because if you notice, we started the story with the name and the names of the companies, just in case 6 years later, all of a sudden, you know, you get this opportunity. We want you to know who it is, because that's the first thing. Just like Breezy said, the name is important. So yeah, you got to be careful out here, because there's so many people that don't use those powers for good, but, you know, just kind of want to get over. And, you know, in some ways, you kind of hear it celebrated on the internet a lot these days, like the finesse culture. Like, oh, I finessed them out of this or that. But, you know, just like Breezy said, your name is your name. So, you know, once that stuff gets associated with it, people aren't going to want to deal with you anymore.
Absolutely. Absolutely not.
All right. T-Pain has joined the advisory board for Slip.Stream, which is a music licensing startup. and it runs a royalty-free library of over 50,000 tracks and more than 40,000 sound effects. And so it's got T-Pain added to their board now. And so far in June, they've raised $3.25 million for initial funding. So it'll be kind of interesting to see what comes forth. Regardless of how you feel about T-Pain's music, if you've watched the This Is Pop, he shared some of the sentiments that people shared with him. But you got to give him credit for being an innovator. And so he thinks differently than most people. And I think that with him being a part of their advisory board, it's going to be really, really interesting to see how they take off. So one of the main claims to fame that they have is trying to work with Twitch and help those users use music from their library to prevent getting takedown notices, which is something that we've talked on here quite a bit about. Twitch is doing their best to try to work with more music companies to kind of keep that from happening. But yeah, I'm excited to see what comes forth from this.
Yeah, and that phrase advisory board, I mean, that's a heavy phrase. You can't just walk into any place and be become situated on an advisory board. You have to be invited for something like that. Okay. And in the invitation, that means that you have actually walked the walk, and you've gotten your hands wet, your brain wet with the involvements of whatever that business endeavor is. So, just to be offered to become part of an advisory board, that's a strong statement right there. So shouts out to him, for the work that he's done over the past few years, and congratulations on assuming that position, that role on the advisory board.
Yes. And, you brought up a good point that nobody can just walk in and, take up that position. Could you imagine just random people from the street just walking up, giving advice? Hey, this is what you need to do. Nobody's going to listen. Nobody's going to respect it. So, yeah, kudos to him for getting his stripes in the game and that opportunity.
And that's also part of that last story, that news story that we just gave. When you got to use this stuff for the positive tips. Don't you only got one name, so don't smear it.
Yeah. And speaking of which, I wasn't fully gonna go there, even though I kind of touched on it. But he gets a lot of flack for the whole auto-tune thing. But if you really, really think about it, to be able to do something so well that everyone starts overusing it, and now people blame you for it, like that's that's a really, really interesting thing, I guess, to occur, that you can do it so well that people say, hey, I need that T-Pain sound, or hey, and so next thing you know, everybody's using it. Then of course everybody becomes mad with the person who made it that popular. But yeah, it's an interesting concept in my book.
Yes, I agree.
All right, Slick Rick is going to be mentoring YouTube Black Voices music class of 2022. So the classmates will have the opportunity to co-write and collaborate musically, and he's going to be sharing his wisdom and guidance with all the grant recipients. So I think that that's an awesome thing. I love Slick Rick. He's personally who I attribute my the moment I fell in love with hip hop was the first time I saw a children's story. So, I think that that's a really exciting opportunity, and congratulations to everybody who gets to take part in that.
Yeah, big congratulations. I mean, that's actually overdue. So yeah, big congratulations.
All right, and okay, now we're getting into the whole international territory a little bit here, but Ireland pubs with live music are not going to be subject to new guidelines around ticketing. And those new guidelines are all live music events and late night hospitality has to be ticketed, with the exclusion of the pubs with live music. But the attendees will also have to show a COVID certificate proving either vaccination or immunity. So, we keep mentioning these stories keep popping up in all these different areas. Now you can consider Ireland as a part of it. So, yes, you got some decisions to make, some things to think about if you're going to be touring, or, if we've got listeners over there, something that you need to keep in mind. you're either going to have to show the test or your vaccination report.
One or the other.
Yep. And, since we're kind of on the subject of the international thing, Korean music industry organizations are calling for more equitable social distancing guidelines. Now, okay, a lot of times when you start a story where you got different groups asking for one thing, you're kind of curious, like, okay, well, why is the government in opposition to what they're asking for? Seems reasonable. But then sometimes once you kind of dig into the story, you can see, what the difference may be. In this case, they have a very, very valid point. So here's the thing. These organizations are questioning why sports teams are allowed to accept fans at a maximum of 30% of the stadium's capacity. 30%. But concerts are only allowed to have a maximum of 500 people in the exact same stadium. So the location actually isn't the problem. It's the type of event for some reason, which is really, really awkward. And so, hopefully with them speaking out and, trying to make things fair so that way the music industry can start to recover as well, I hope that they're able to make their point and that those adjustments are made, because that makes no sense at all.
You're right.
Yeah.
Right. That's all. I mean, that's all I can say. You're right.
Yeah, it's just odd. But yeah, it's just good to kind of know what's happening everywhere. And once again, with those events, most of those, the venues are allowed to have more people as long as everyone's vaccinated. If they allow unvaccinated people to come in, then that number gets cut down by quite a bit. So I think what we're going to start seeing here is, more and more of this happening. So we've already mentioned all these other places, locations, and, now add Korea to the mix too. So yeah, there's decisions to be made regardless of how you feel about it. If you don't want the vaccine, you're well within your rights. So just make sure that you're willing to get tested regularly so you can still enjoy live shows if that's what you want to do.
Point well made.
All right, and there's a new documentary coming forward called It's Different in Chicago. It discusses Chicago's house music and hip hop divide. So the documentary kind of details the whole momentum behind what they're considering the divide and how it's kind of still, both cultures are kind of still locked in a divide for respect at home and abroad. So it's scheduled to premiere as a part of the Black Harvest Film Festival, which takes place during November 5th through December 2nd. So I'm kind of curious to see it. I hope that I'm able to gain access to it to be able to watch it. Chicago house music and hip hop, for that matter, both have been very influential on me musically and my style. Being in Kalamazoo, we're halfway between Chicago and Detroit. So, we get a lot of that essence kind of mixed into the music here. So yeah, I'm really hyped to see it.
Well, you know what? I gotta give a shout out to us and some other folks that are right along with us, and we're with them. Number one, we're excited to be part of a global podcast community. I used to think a while back that the podcast community was a little bit over my head, this, that, the other, whatever. And over the years, it has solidified and grown tremendously. So right now we're giving a shout out to Grander Radio out of Grand Rapids, Michigan, for the work that they do and actually supporting our show, our broadcast, and also to Sparks Radio out of Denver, Colorado. We're growing. Some things are happening on the good side, presenting this great information to educate you in many different ways of what's going on in the music industry and otherwise. So yes, support these guys, Grander Radio and Sparks Radio, because they're doing a whole lot of great things and actually, helping this podcast community grow, of which we are part of right here on Music Marvels Radio Show. So had to throw that in there.
Yes, indeed. We're very grateful to them. So yeah, make sure that you check them out. They've got other great programming on as well. So yeah, we definitely want you to stay tuned when we're on, but go ahead and leave it on and check out what's coming up after.
That's right. because we do,
Right.
So hey,
Yeah.
so we do as we say, we do as we speak, and so we want to throw that out and have you do the same.
Yes. All right. Before we head out, this is kind of a thing. I don't know if you actually caught it when it was going on Twitter. He has since deleted some of these tweets, but Meek Mill recently blasted his record label saying that he hasn't been paid. So he didn't specify if he was talking about Maybach Music Group in particular or Atlantic Records. However, if you recall earlier this year, there was some buzz and reports going on that he wanted out of his Maybach music contract. And when he was celebrating his birthday in Miami, he didn't let the label boss Rick Ross enter his section at the club. So, I mean, he didn't say who he was talking about, but by logical deduction, you can probably assume that's what he means. So he actually threatened to post his contract online. That way people could see what type of verbiage was built into his contract. So, he's like, I should show these people what record labels be on. So it's kind of, one of those other cautionary tales. So it's like, I signed this, but when you really look at it, this isn't really fair. So, his question was, right, and this is for anybody that might not really be aware of how this works, but, they give you the advance. You go ahead, you do your music, they put it out, and then once the label starts to recoup their costs that they spent to, put it out, market it, and all that good stuff, then that's when the artist starts to get more money on the back end portion of it. But they're going to recoup that initial money that they gave you and all those other things that it took to actually make the album successful. And so because of that, sometimes it can take a little bit longer. But he's saying, based off of the numbers and everything that he did, he should have already been past that recoupment phase, but he still hasn't seen any money from it. So, definitely something to kind of be aware of. I try to share information whenever I can that kind of sheds a little bit of light on it, because a lot of times these terms get kind of thrown around and people get nervous. You're in a big deal. You've got these head honchos around you or whatever. And you don't necessarily want to say, hey, I don't really know what that means. Go ahead and ask questions. Go ahead and, do your research ahead of time. Know what some of the popular things are that come up during these meetings. So that way you have an understanding of what you're actually signing to. So, don't just look at the dollar signs they have on the bottom line, because everybody's like, oh, yeah, they signed me for $1 million, $2 million, or whatever the case is. But that is not free money that they're giving you. And so, and the only reason why they're willing to give you that up front is because they know that they're going to make at least that back. So, you got to make sure that the verbiage that they have in there isn't shortchanging you. So, another cautionary tale right here.
Yeah. And I got to throw this in there on the back end. When it comes to sharing contracts that you have personally signed with an entity, that might not be a road you want to go down. Because when you put that contract out there in the public for all to see, then down the road, when you're somewhere else, here could be a great offer that's even, that just dwarfs that offer, but that entity might be reluctant to sign with you because of what you did. Okay, so keep those keep those contracts and documents private and personal with that entity that you've signed the document and contract with, because once you put, that's not really public knowledge. So when if an artist or if just an average everyday person, they put that out there for all to see, believe me, it might make the impact right then, but before the whole day is over, that's going to come back to bite you.
Yes, absolutely. So you definitely have to be careful with this stuff. We have mentioned before, discussing when DJ Quick wasn't happy with the royalties that he was receiving and burned the check. And, people are like, well, what if the record company sees this and says, oh, well, if you don't want that, then maybe we don't send this. So I mean, it's understandable. As artists, you know, we're really sensitive to begin with. So, you know, the knee-jerk reaction comes from our passion about what we do. But just as Breezy said, you got to be careful because that stuff stays on your record. The next label, the next management team will remember that. So yeah, just be careful with what you're doing out here.
Absolutely.
Yes. All right, we're going to take another quick break and then we'll be right back to close out the night with you.
Okay.
right, and that wraps up this episode of Music Marvels with Achickwitbeatz and Breezy Gipson. We're glad that you hung out with us, and we really, really want you to come back and do it again next week, because we'll be here with more goodness for you.
Yeah, and I got to bring this up too. For the listeners from Sea to Shining Sea and beyond all over the globe, you need to take a minute and actually visit Achickwitbeatz.com, because whether you know or not, this young lady right here is a trailblazer, plus also a fireball as far as advising artists, as far as creating sounds and rhythms and so on and so forth. She may have already created the sound or rhythm that you're looking for that can be your next biggest hit. Okay, so don't just gloss over that. You got to dig in there deep, reach out, email, text her, or whatever. But most definitely visit Achickwitbeatz.com and take the time to filter through all the levels that are on that site, because there's nothing but goodness in there, and she's one of the hardest working women in business, period. Okay, so reach out, and you don't have to be a woman to do that. There's plenty of men that have done that and are doing it, so don't overlook that. And then on the B side, we got different entrepreneurial activities going on and opportunities going on, so reach out to this show, because there could be something right there that can help generate some additional profits for you wherever you may be. And so make sure you do that, Achickwitbeatz.com, and you'll be the better for doing that. And again, entrepreneurial side, opportunities and so forth, we got them right here. So until we get back next week, I'm going to turn it right back over to Achickwitbeatz.
Yes, thank you so much for that. So, as Breezy had already mentioned, make sure that you check us out. Tell your friends about it, tune in, bring your notepad, and you know where to find us next week, same time, same place. Tune in, tell a friend, and we'll see you then. Peace.
Show your right. Peace.